All right,
All
and
right.
have it so people can share, and I'm so pleased. Joy has taken this project upon herself. She's been a vital, important person in this committee, and so we're really excited about having her here. So I'm gonna not waste your time and let you go for it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anna. Hello, everyone. I am Joy Michael Okokon, a third-year student here at Missouri State University, and I'm excited to have everyone here present for this panel discussion. I'd like to appreciate the CIWIG team members for granting this opportunity for myself and other alums and international artists within the diaspora. And I'm going to give each panelist a few minutes to introduce themselves, in no particular order, really. And once you're done with that, we'll move on from there. Any panelists would like to introduce themselves?
So I can go. Hi, everyone. So I'm Teddy Osei from Ghana, currently living in the United States. I'm currently the assistant professor of ceramics and 3D at Lincoln University, and I'm just happy to be a part of this discussion this morning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eugene Ofori Agyei from Ghana, as usual. I do installation and sculpture, and I do a lot of like mixed media work. So currently, I'm a tenured teaching fellow at Ofori University in New York.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne Adams, and I'm excited to be here and to have this conversation. I'm from Nigeria. I came to the US 2 years ago, how time flies, to pursue an MFA at Tyler. And I recently just graduated in May. Well, it's not so recent. But yeah, I do a lot of stuff, but my main discipline, I would say, would be sculpture. But I also do video and collage and installation and stuff.
When you say sculpture, is it ceramic sculpture?
Yes, ceramic and metal sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Michael Dela. I'm a former visiting professor at Tyler School of Arts. I just got into a residency, a 3-year residency at a Clay Studio, which literally started in September. I'm excited. I'm also a sculptural artist. I sometimes do installation, and I'm excited to be here to actually be part of this conversation. I'm also from Ghana, and I moved to the US 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rebecca, do you want to, because I think the rest of our group are, well, Sam, we'll make sure to introduce him, but Rebecca, go ahead, since you're new to the group.
Okay, I'm Rebecca Nagy, and Joy shared the notice about this panel with me. I'm so glad she did, because I've been hearing about it from several of the group, but I haven't been able to observe and participate before, so I'm really happy to be here. I was the director of the Art Museum at the University of Florida, the Harn Museum of Art, for 16 years. And the Harn has shown and collected ceramics and contemporary art, and we have quite a few works by Ghanaian contemporary artists. So it's an area of special interest for me.
So I'm going to let Joy take over the question time, and then open it up to the rest. We just got one more person that can go ahead.
Okay. My first question will go to Annie. So my question will be like, what motivated you to pursue a master's program as a young female artist? And how do you stay relevant and continue to grow as a female artist after your completion of your master's degree here in the United States?
Okay, thank you, Joy. I'll start by saying that I wanted to get an MFA program because I felt the need to like grow conceptually. And, I already had this skill because I learned from a local potter. So I already had the skill, and I just needed to grow more and to understand why I was doing what I was doing, and also to be introduced to, like, I guess, new technology and new aspects of my practice. As we may know, in Nigeria or in Ghana, but I will speak for Nigeria, there are very limited ceramic facilities in general. And, I had to live in the outskirts of Lagos to be able to access a kiln. So that was really difficult for me, and just not having the materials around that I needed to, like, explore and try new things. So it was in that sense that I decided to apply to grad school. And in general, it has been like a very enriching experience. I say, like, I learned a lot about myself and my practice, and I also learned about contemporary discourse, and to be able to go to shows in New York or in Philadelphia to see what other artists are doing and how other artists are engaging in their work is really, like, an experience, and very eye-opening. And what keeps me going after my MFA, or what keeps me pushing, it's already like kind of a lifestyle at this point, and I have an immense love for ceramics, even though it breaks my heart sometimes. But I just, when you find something that you love and you're ready to dedicate your life to it, yeah, that's what keeps me pushing. And to all the amazing people as well that also put me on and have given me, like, opportunities and stuff. I don't want to disappoint anybody. So yeah.
I think that's a great response, Anna. Personally, my decision coming to the United States to study, I did my national service. I had my first degree in Ghana, but that skill, that knowledge, I really resonates with you talking about, like, the limited amount of, like, materials or facilities in Nigeria before you can get a kiln, or a certain material. You have to, like, travel far distance, or where it's even established is not even well used. But then learning and coming into the United States and having a space to work in, having access to, like, variety of kilns and materials was very, very helpful. I mean, some persons will, like, want to, like, stop at a certain level, like, oh, I want to get married and just have kids and just lounge in the house. But again, the essence to, like, build up the to build up myself as an artist and as an emerging artist, I think it was relevant for me. And also my future goal to be a professor. So yes, I can resonate with that. Does anyone have any other experience they'd like to share, reason why you came to the US and why that was relevant to you?
I think I
Okay,
like
Michael.
one sort of like better sentiments of Adams. I think it was more about the medium and the material, because personally I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos to sort of like refine my skill set. And one thing that I saw was that the kind of clay we use in Africa was very different from the kind of clay that was used in the Western world. So that sort of like really piqued my interest, and I was interested in, like, not just experimenting and exploring my ideas with the clays or the local clay that I have in Ghana, but also sort of like expanding on the material more and more. And another thing that I saw was that the Western world had a lot of, they were more accepting in terms of, like, adding other mediums to clay, whereas the program that I graduated in was very, like, traditional, and I really wanted to expand the medium more and more. So that was one of the reasons why I was interested in pursuing an MFA in America.
Awesome. Thank you for your contribution, Teddy. My next question actually goes to you, Teddy. What is the most critical preparatory step for entering a graduate program in ceramics? Because most of the students here are in that stage of, like, probably in that stage of, like, getting ready to coming to the US or putting in their documents, but what would you consider as the most critical and important steps to take when applying for a graduate program in ceramics here in the US?
So it's funny that you say this because I think somewhere in the summer, Michael and I went back to Ghana, and Professor Norte did host us for a discussion called The Conversation. And these were some of the topics that sort of like popped up. The students were really interested. And I believe the audience that we are speaking to are essentially Ghanaian ceramic students. So these were some conversations that did pop up. And Eugene, Michael, and I have sort of like been going back and forth because there's a ton of students that will reach out to you. And when they essentially reach out to you, the first thing that we tell them that, can you send us a copy of your portfolio or possibly your SOP? And when they send it to you, like, I would say it's an eyesore, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done to refine their thought process, to refine even what they are making. So for me, first and foremost, I would say, I love what Professor Norte, together with the other professors and mentors from even the Western world, or specifically America, have sort of like done to radicalize the curriculum in KNUST. Because as I said, during our time, it was more about the skill set and not necessarily about the concept, which was great. And it gave me a very good foundation. So as I moved from Ghana into the US, I'm able to sort of like expand more on my concept. So I say the first and foremost is to be in a very good program like the one in KNUST, stay in it, don't leave. Secondly, I'd say be very intentional about the kind of work you put into your portfolio. So that will be your portfolio. So in as much as, because I know we are all undergrads, and day in, day out, most of the work that we will make would be more assignment and grade oriented. So in as much as you are making this, the one thing that I did, I think my final year in KNUST was that my last assignment, I wasn't just focused on the grade, which was really important. I was interested in sort of like using the material to explore who I am, my identity as a Ghanaian, or as a second born of my family, just sort of like exploring this ideas and pushing these ideas a little bit further. So don't just limit yourself to making an assignment for the purpose of grades. Expand your horizon. It could you could play with it in the sense that maybe you make an assignment for grade, but also you have like a separate set of work that you are making to build a portfolio. So first and foremost, the portfolio is very crucial, especially if you want to go into a graduate program. Even if they are works that you just submit for grades, it has to be really good. It has to be really refined and connect to your overall concept. Secondly, I would say mentorship. As I said, this is a very good foundation. We have Anna, we have Rebecca, two Rebeccas. So there's a lot of possibility. And like during our time, the only person that was studying in America was, I think, Eric, Eugene, am I right? Michael, Eric, yeah. So we didn't have like a lot of exposure in terms of mentorship, but we did have great mentors at KNU. Professor Norte was really great. He gave very good recommendations. He gave very good feedback as far as your SOP. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard, but just that's Professor Norte. That's who he is. I think you just have to have a balance of the two. Other than that, if you just see the jovial aspect of him, you might not appreciate the serious aspect of him also. So he was a really great mentor. And now we have a wonderful opportunity where you have us. There's a lot of us here now. You have this whole foundation that mentors specifically women. So that will be a good resource. You have wonderful mentors on this foundation. That will also be a great place to start from. So for me, I would say, so basically, the reason why you need a mentor is because whenever you put together your portfolio, put together your CV, put together your statement or your personal story, depending on the school that you're applying to, you need someone to look at it for you. So whether it be Professor Norte, whether Anna, whoever you want to send, and you want to build that confidence and forward it to them. Sometimes, even if what you have made you feel like it's not good enough, just forward it to them. Because the purpose of mentorship in this regard is for them to give you feedback. So whatever feedback they give you, just don't be sensitive. Take it with a pinch of salt. Some mentors are hard, whereas others are very soft with their words. So take it with a pinch of salt, refine it over and over and over. It will get to a very good place. Then you should be able to submit it. Lastly, what I would say is because when I was applying, I think the number one thing on my mind was to just get into a program. I didn't do any research to understand what's like the school, like, because every single MFA or MA program is very different. They have a specific category of works they help their students build. Some are more focused in a very traditional way. Some are more interdisciplinary. Some are like, if it's photography, you have to stay here. If it's ceramics, don't add anything to it. Like, I want to call them like the purist, not necessarily like they don't want any other material attached to ceramics. It has to be ceramic for itself. So you need to do a thorough research, understand like the mission and the vision statement of the MFA program before you even start applying, not because you want to come to America or probably get to the Western world. So you just apply to anything that comes your way. Make sure they like the kind of work you'll be making. That is why even in your statement, you need to talk about your research and what have you. I think I'm talking too much, but I'll just end here and I'll just recap it. So the first thing is your portfolio. In as much as you are making work for probably grades, think of ways through which you'll be able to tie not necessarily a very deep conceptual framework, but like work with a little bit of concept in there. Secondly, mentorship, people who help you refine your writing, refine your skill set. Then thirdly, look for schools that align with your both long and short-term interest as a practicing artist. If you don't do that and you go into any random school, you might end up changing your work completely. They might not buy into the idea that you are doing. They won't say it, but it will be more of indirect critiques. And you always come out of critiques feeling more and more sad about your practice, about your work. So be mindful of some of these things as you are preparing for graduate school.
Thank you so much, Teddy. I feel that's excellent advice.
Can I add to Teddy's, if possible?
Yeah.
I think one thing that I wish I knew before applying to schools in the US was what was my style? What defines you as an artist? So I think, like Teddy said, when I went to Ghana, I made sure I had to make the students understand what it means to define themselves as an artist. And in as much as we might be doing the same assignments, I feel like there can definitely be a language or like a specific technique or, style that you can develop throughout the whole assignments that can still define you as an artist, like can still define your works in ways that everyone can actually see. And having like the long-term goal of this is something I'm developing and learning for myself throughout my whole entire career, even after school. And I think if you have that kind of mindset, it's easier for you to translate that into grad school generally. Talking about like preparations made before getting to the US, I think, when we were coming, like Teddy said, we didn't have a lot of mentorship, but I think one thing I was also grateful for was around that time, we had a professor from accounts, Eugene, who was around. And I think she was able to review some of our portfolios. And I think when you're in Ghana, it's hard to, everything is just like imaginary, right? You imagine what it's like, you imagine that, oh, this work is great. It might actually translate very differently in certain schools. So you actually wonder, everything is just like imagination, right? But I think with what made it different was that Gina was able to tell us exactly what certain schools expect, how to even arrange the portfolios, how to even give labeling to the portfolios, the name, the title, the dates, all of those things were something that I think we learned. And for students in Ghana now to be able to know that ahead of time will actually really be very beneficial to them as well. If you want to apply for the US, I always think of it as a niche. Like, what's your niche, right? Because there are thousands of people applying anyway. What makes you different from every other candidate that's applying? So being able to recognize that from the beginning, it's a very important value. So you can actually start crafting and creating your works in a specific style and a specific idea, even if it's unfired. Why is it unfired? I always tell them that. Because I know in Ghana, we are not always able to fire our works. So even if it's on fire, like is it like can you make it more intentional in a way that defines you as an artist? You know, if it's also fired and it's bakes fired or pits fired, like why are you using that? Like being able to like think of play not just within the framework of like the classroom, but in a way that you are trying to communicate certain ideas, I think is very relevant for applying for schools in the US, because that's what the review committee is looking at anyway. And they're looking at how they can refine your work with their institution and with their help, right? So if you have that kind of mindset, I think it's easy to translate into grad programs in the US, which is very important. So just to add a little bit to Teddy, I think those are also very relevant. Also, I mean, beyond the portfolio, resume too has to be very good. Like you have to be able to develop exhibitions. You know, back then I remember Eugene and I did a publication, you know, undergrad, we published like 2 or 3 papers before coming to the US. Pretty much because we're trying to add value to ourselves in ways that we thought would be very beneficial for the grads program that we're applying for. But beyond the portfolio, I think being able to apply for different exhibitions in Ghana, even hosting an exhibition, like the group exhibition by yourself, is also very important. Like be more creative, be able to go the extra mile to be able to get your resume to be looking good and great. Because beyond the portfolio, the resume will also be something that will differentiate you from other candidates as well. And then having like a very concise framework for why you're making what you're making, I think will definitely land into, will be a very good preparation for you to come into life in the US.
All right, Joey, can I add up with what he said? I'm not going to take my time about that. So like speaking on what they both said about portfolio and research, and also what else? Portfolio and research. And I think I'm really a good example of what happened. So in 2019, that was myself, Teddy, and Michael. We all applied, and I did apply with my student, what they said about student works. So like I think Michael and Teddy got into school, and I ended up getting rejection to all the, I think, 6 schools that I applied in 2019. So that was when I met Jeannie, and then I showed my portfolio to Jeannie Huling, and she said, "Oh no, this is not good. Go back to the studio and make a cohesive body of work." So I have to, because of what I was looking out for. So I went back to my studio. I think then I was still on campus teaching. So I went back to the studio and make, new set of work, reason why I'm making this specific kind of work. And I think that really helped me, because after reapplying the second time, which is 2020, I ended up getting like 5 schools who gave me like full scholarship. So I totally agree with them, what they said about in terms of portfolio, and also like, doing your research. So with the research too, I think I remember during my time, after getting all those numerous rejection, what I did was look into school that, supports interdisciplinary program. So, so what I did was the schools that I applied to were schools that allow students to incorporate different media into their work. So like that also helped me to get that, because I remember there was one specific school that I applied to like 2 times, but I ended up being rejected because they don't accept that. They don't do that in their program. Their professors are more like talking about Creole identity and those stuff, and also make figurative works. And I don't do figuratives. But even though my works were really, great then, but, they rejected me because they don't do that. So like, I also agree with research. And I think one thing I also want to add to what Teddy said and Michael said is emailing the professors in the school. I think I remember my time, my second cycle of application, after, getting everything, I started emailing professors. I emailed Anna. Anna saw my work and she was like, "Oh, I like that. Go ahead and apply." So though, UF was a place that I wanted to go to, but I also applied to so many schools because I talked to all the professors in the school. So they knew that, oh, Eugene will definitely going to apply for this program. So in other way, you have someone who's going to advocate for you in the during the review, or during the committee review. So I think, I totally resonate with them because, personally, I went through that same thing. So that's something that I wanted to add to.
Well, thank you, Eugene, for your contribution. I think there's a
A question.
comment.
Yeah.
There's a chat question.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally with Unfired Works, like what is the idea behind Unfired Works? Like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about like the vulnerability of clay in a way that like if it's subjected to like external environment, it almost like, breaks down? Like if the concept of the work has to do with the process, then I think like the professors are actually really good. The review committee can actually tell that this is what you're trying to communicate, and they'll definitely welcome that idea. If you are trying to also like talk about what clay, like unfired clay can do with other materials like wood, how does it crack, like the process of how clay interacts with other mediums that has not been fired, I think they can also resonate with that idea. But if you're just making like sculptural piece and it's unfired, I feel like that can be there can be a slight difference as to why you're making them. So it really just depends on what you're trying to communicate. If anyone wants to add to that, I think that's my idea with that.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Michael is saying. There's one artist that I'll recommend, Kessil's Cassils. So she is actually, she's a queer artist. What she does is that she sort of like she uses clay in a very experimentational way and performative way. So that could be one artist you can sort of like look at ways in which she's engaging the medium, because the clay is unfired. It's like raw clay, and she's sort of like engage it within a very performative way, and like her mark making, the indentations that she makes on the clay becomes more like a sculptural object. So you could combine the idea of like performance and sort of like having this object in the space, or more like a remnant of your performance. So that could be one artist I could recommend if you want to sort of like go the route of using unfired clay.
My next question would go to Eugene.
Oh.
So selecting a grad program, what factors should be prioritized when choosing a graduate program? I'm sure we've spoken a bit about this, but
Right.
which emphasis can be laid on it? So what factors should be considered when prioritizing choosing a graduate program to ensure it aligns with their career goals or aspirations? So there's like the research university R1, and then there's the teaching research R2 category. If you can like explain what that is and how that applies to the ceramic field.
Great. Thank you. Totally get you. So I think I also want to use my own experience. So right after college in Kano West, Ghana, I think what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a professor. And I remember when I was in school, the reason why I started publishing was, right after my teaching research methodology class, I went to Dr. Note's office, and I was like, Prof, I want to then he was a doctor. So I was like, I want to become a professor. I want to teach in the university. So I want to start publishing because I know publishing is hard. And I think after, taking the class, I've, gained this interest in publishing, because I know that there's a saying that it's either publish or perish. Like there's something called like, that in academia. So I think, one thing I'm grateful about him was that, he didn't hesitate to help me. He's like, oh, I'm so grateful that you've taken this bold step to do this. So we started from there. So right after college, I thought like, I could teach with my bachelor's degree in college, like in the university. So I think I remember it's either Dr. Note, he said, no, you need to have a further education, either a PhD. So in Ghana, you need your master's degree and a PhD. So when Jenny Hooling came, and she came on a Fulbright scholarship and did the mentorship and talking about professional practice and everything, And then I was like, okay, I think this is how I want to do. So, in college, what I wanted to do is to teach and also become a professional artist right after school. Because, in Ghana, when you study ceramics, we end up like branching, either like doing work in the banking sector, or like, doing a different degree in the master's, or doing a second degree in the university or any other university. So I think after hearing Ginny talk about professional practice and way forward, and I said, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to go to China. So we started portfolio and everything. I think Teddy also remembered that. So we all wanted to go to China. So when Ginny Holling came and talked about art and contemporary art and everything, I realized that the kind of work that I want to do, I don't think China will be the best place for me to be, because China is more into the formal quality, which is the technical, and that is something that I already know here. And I think the US also introduced you to that, and also the contemporary art. So after doing my research, and I was like, okay, I want to teach and also be a professional practice. So grad school, when I started my research, I started looking into, one thing that I did was to look into schools that support research, and also which is you making as an artist, and also help students to teach. So UF, for instance, is an institution that trains students to become an educator and also a professional artist. So when I was doing my research, I was also looking into schools that do the R1 and also the teaching. Is it R1?
Yeah, R1, R2.
Yeah, R1 and R2. So we have institutions here in the US who are solely into making, and the least that some students get is to do maybe teaching assistant. But for me, my school where I went, I ended up going, I got opportunity to teach for 1 year, I think two years or so. And I also did education. So I think one thing I always, encourage students to do is to always research or look into school that are, assigned to your vision and mission. Because if you want to teach, you don't want to be in an institution that only supports students to, you don't want to be in an institution where you don't get the chance to teach, or you don't get a chance to have such experience. So I think that was the one thing that I did when, I wanted to pursue this career, because, I always talk to people, and one thing they always tell me that you can't do both because it's hard. And I think sometimes I agree, like I don't. It's yes or no. I think it's depends you as an individual. And I wanted to do both. So that's why, I chose that particular school, because they were able to train me. I did education for I think a semester, and I got opportunity to teach my own class for 1 year. And also the professional practice side of you being an artist, they also like train you how to become an artist, how the business work outside. And I think most schools don't do that. And I think one thing that I always tell people is that the fact that you're making work doesn't make you an artist. You need to show your work. You need to, do all those things for you to become like an artist. And the fact that you're teaching art doesn't make you an artist. So being an artist is, I think, is really, and it's something that you don't, it's hard to end that name called artist. So I think for me, I mean, you also need to check, the schools that help that, because I've been in an institution where students don't get opportunity to, to get those experience, especially professional practice. How to make after school, how to, how to write grant proposal, how to apply for exhibitions and residencies and those stuff, and also even how to prepare, resumes and this stuff. So like most students or most schools don't teach their student how to do that. So I think, when you're applying for grad school, you need to, look into those things, the things that matters to you, what you're looking for, and the kind of, work that you want to do, and who you want to be after grad school. Yeah. And another point is, I think I've talked about the professional practice and also like, the goals and that thing. But I also want to add up to the things that you need to prepare for that, which is the other statements, the portfolio itself, like what Teddy said, your resume, you also need to make sure that you have your transcript and your certificate as well. But then the most important thing is your portfolio.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Also, the US is like very big and every state is very different. And for me, when I was applying, I was thinking about proximity to, I guess, all states have like, local exhibitions and stuff, but I was thinking about proximity to like exhibitions around me, because for me, it was about building conceptually. And I did not have a BFA. I had a BSc. So it was like a new territory for me in general. So I guess my goal was to like learn and learn and learn. So I picked Philadelphia because Philadelphia is close to New York and it's not as expensive as New York. And also bringing that point again into consideration is how expensive the US can be as well. So you want to pick somewhere where you know that you can afford. And also when you're thinking about schools, you're also looking at the funding. Funding is very important. You want to know what type of packages they have and if they're able to complement you, or, because it's really like, before I came to the US, we had this notion that things were so easy in the US and money grows on trees, but it really doesn't. So you need to figure that out, just the funding aspect of it. Yeah.
All right. Can I sort of like piggyback a little bit on what Eugene said? So I think for me, when I think of R1 institution, I think of more of the faculty than the students in themselves. When I also think of R2 institutions, I think of more of the faculty than the students themselves. So in this sense, if you were a potential or prospective graduate student and you are thinking of applying to any graduate school, researching R1 University is very important because the MFA program is all about mentorship, to be honest with you. In as much as you take courses just to refine your thought process, is heavily based on mentorship. So I believe, and I could be wrong, is Florida an R1? Yeah, so an institution like Florida is an R1 institution.
Major one, we're major.
Yeah, so basically this means that all the faculty focus heavily on research and less on teaching. So it could be that per semester you just have 2 classes that you teach, or even 1. And the rest is more about teaching and service and what have you. So if you go under such mentorship, there is a tendency for you to expound more on your research and learn more, refine your thought, because the person who is mentoring you is actively exhibiting their work, actively writing for grants, actively looking for opportunities to develop herself personally and also expand the program. But if you go into an R2 school, the disadvantage is that it's heavily based on teaching. So the person who will be mentoring you, it could be that for a whole year, they've not even showed anywhere because the teaching load alone is like ridiculous. It could be that per semester they are teaching like 4 or 5 classes, including graduate classes, which is like, graduate classes can be a lot to even prepare for. Because imagine going to teach someone who already have an undergrad. You need to know what you're talking about, and they'll start questioning your tendency as a professor. So you have to heavily prepare and all those kind of things that goes into it. So I think I'll just answer it from faculty mentorship position, because you need to look at these 2 things. What do you really want to expand on? Do you really want to expand on your research more, just like what Eugene said? Or you just want to focus solely on maybe your teaching? So these are the 2 things that so keep in mind, R1 is heavily research, not necessarily less teaching, but the teaching load is not that much. So the professor have a lot of time to do research and expand their practice, whereas R2 heavily teaching, less time for research, so they don't know much. And this sort of like dovetails into the idea of opportunities. So if you go into an R1 opportunity, the tendency for your mentor or your faculty to recommend different kinds of opportunities for you is very high. I believe Tyler, and I could be, Tyler too is R1, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of recommendations.
Part
They
of
can
Temple
send.
University. So
Temple.
people
Thank
consider
you,
it
Temple
Temple, but it's
University.
and that's
Yeah.
that's major. Yeah.
Thank you so
Temple.
much. They have an opportunity to give you a lot of ideas. Whereas when you go to how to, me myself, I don't even know where to apply for exhibitions. How do I introduce you to such things? So keep that in mind as you are doing your research. And it's very easy to find it when you key in, maybe if there's a specific university that you want to attend. Like I know Missouri State is out too because it's heavily teaching. So if you want to expand on your research and think of more of opportunities, I don't recommend that school. I would highly recommend Florida or Temple if you want that exposure and those opportunities. Because I remember, I'm saying this to this effect is that I didn't know all these things until probably I went into the program. Then I realized that then I was always bitter. I was like, the faculty is not helping. They are not showing us shows. They are not giving us opportunity. Because I had to fight for myself. I had to start actively exhibiting my work, actively putting myself out there. Which to say you still have to do that in R1, but because your mentor is actively always researching, they could come by an opportunity, look at the eligibility criteria and go like, oh, probably Eugene will be a best fit, or probably Michael will be a best fit for this, or maybe Joy will be a best fit, or Anna will be a best fit. So they send it your way. So it sort of like reduces your work by maybe about 70%, no, by 30 or 40% if you choose an R1. Whereas R2, you do more of the work. So keep that in mind as you apply. And it's very easy to find that on Google.
Also to add to it, I think you also want to make sure the institution also offer grants to students to do their research. Like you want to be in an institution where you can apply for grants. There are departments grants, there are college grants, and there are like, general overall grants that can actually help your research. I think that's also important. And in doing this, that will actually help you propel your career in different ways than just put you into like a box of like teaching. So grants are also very important. You want to make sure the faculty are also very well versed in the field in which they are. I think it naturally translates to the student, because when you see your faculty doing something in New York or like somewhere in Met, you're like, oh, how do I get there? You have like that proximity, right? So it's very easy to be able to imagine it, be able to see how it's done, and be able to like create the pathway towards that. So I think pretty much it comes down to, what do you want? Do you want to be a teacher or do you want to be an artist? So if you know what you want, you can apply to schools that teaching is like heavy. So you can actually learn like the pedagogy of art and everything, and you can like focus just on that. Or if you want to be able to develop yourself as an artist and you want to have a blend of the teaching and then the arts, I think you want an institution that does both or offers both opportunities. That is grants. Faculties are into the field working and are also teaching at the same time. And you have the ability to develop yourself with exhibitions and opportunities and like professional practice. Sometimes though, just so you know, with schools that like the faculty are heavily into research, you might not see the faculty for over a year, and that is possible. So like you imagine, oh, maybe Roberto Lugo, and you go to the school and you don't see Roberto Lugo for like a year. It's very possible. So sometimes what you're looking for, you might not also get it, but like it just depends on how you want to navigate. There are definitely other faculties that could also help you. And sometimes when they're on sabbatical, you can still reach out to them, because then they are still part of the institution in a way. It's just like maybe further out. So I think it really comes down to, what do you want? Do you want to be a professor? So if that is the case, you go to schools that offer more teaching than, offering like the research and then the grants for you to develop as an artist. But I think the best though is actually get both, like really. So you can actually choose which one you want. Like you don't want to just put yourself into one, like just pedagogy and teaching, and then you don't get opportunity to exhibit your work. Because in order for you to teach, you still need to exhibit your work anyway. So you need to be able to learn both actually. So researching on which schools offer that kind of curriculum and that kind of like that kind of structure is very important. You really want to, unless you generally want to do something that is very, there are institutions that actually do things that are very traditional, like they just want to, especially with clay, like they just want to use the big, clay, like they just want to do, salt firing, like all of the traditional practice that has to do with clay. There are institutions that are heavily into that. If you want to, like, your practice is actually about that, then that is also something you can choose. But I think personally, you want to be able to have both. Like when institutions is able to offer the ability to do your research, get you grants, teach you professional practice, and maybe offer you the opportunity to teach as a TA. And as always, funding is very important. You can't survive in the US without funding. You really want to be able to check if the school has funding for you. And I think that is also very important. And to add to Arne's point, if you are somewhere in like in Iowa, like I think there are some institutions that can studio exhibitions, right? It depends on what you want. But if you are somewhere in Philadelphia or in Philly, like in Temple, where I was, you have the opportunity to actually go to New York. So I think you still need to be able to like think of where exactly you want to be in relationship to like your overall goal. And that could actually help you define which institution would be best for your work and then your research as an artist.
Okay. I want to add something a little bit regarding exhibition, and then I'm going to be respectful of time and then keep the conversation open for questions right after my comments. So I'm currently taking a professional practice class, and we had a guest speaker yesterday. They own a gallery, and this gallery in New York, yeah, they're in New York City, and they converted their living space into a gallery room, and the other part is their residency where they stay as a family. They're a family of 3. And the idea of like where to, like in Ghana, like where to exhibit my work, how can I exhibit my work? If you have a space within your home, you can convert that to a good exhibition, so you can set up a tent in your home. You can if you have a good garage, you can have that as an exhibition space. We're talking about I don't know if it's a thing in Ghana though, but getting like a truck and having that open and then exhibiting your work. And there are many other fun ways to have a solo exhibition or a group exhibition with your pairs. And there's also an exhibition space. There's a gallery space and at UST in the ceramics department. You can speak to the professors, like this is what you're considering and you're in your pairs, or you want to have it solo. Many ways. I remember the Department of Painting and Design. They usually, back then, they usually have like wild ideas of exhibition. And I remember attending one at the railway station. It was amazing. So there are many, many avenues to exhibit your work, building up your portfolio. Again, that idea of building a portfolio and thinking of documenting right now. I was always keen on documenting my work. Like no matter what stage it was, I would just document it. And it's something I also introduced to my first-year students as part of what they submit at the end of the semester is a documented work. So they already have like a full-on portfolio when we're done with our class session and they present on it. So documentation cannot be overemphasized. And it's a great thing to employ. And also, again, we were spoken about mentorship. I'm excited for this this women's group put together to help build up the careers of young ceramic female artists. And if you're also a male here undergrad and you're also considering mentorship, we are open to accepting whatever you have to show us. I did not have this opportunity when I was coming into the US, and this platform, you can use it to your advantage. Reach out to any of the professors. And one of the panelists spoke about whenever feedback is being given to you, be sure to take that in, make those corrections, and then, send that out. So if you're just going to not respond, or you're just going to take it and then leave, that's not a good way to build up. So think about this, think about all of this when you want to reach out to any professor or any students or any mentor in here. We're more than happy to help and support. So without blabbing or talking too much, we're going to leave the floor open for questions. And also, panelists, if you have anything to share or drop in the chat box, please be sure to do that.
While you're waiting for questions, people break the ice there. As a former curator and museum director, I could have this advice to offer. A lot of artists send portfolios and approach curators and directors at museums asking if there would be an interest in showing their work, or having, even a one-person exhibition, or acquiring the work for the collection. And you might not believe how constant those inquiries are for a museum person. They're just like every day you get these kind of inquiries. There's no way you can really respond positively. You might respond and just say, thank you for sharing your work, we'll have a look, but you can't really accommodate all those artists. So it's sort of along the lines of doing your research and developing mentors. I'll just say, for instance, Eugene graduated from my university. We've shown his work at my museum, but the museum has still not acquired a piece of his work. Well, I required 6 years ago, so I don't have a lot of clout anymore. But I still advocate for the artist who graduated from our program, and hope that eventually we'll be able to see their work in the collection. But so I guess this is the same thing I tell students and interns who've worked with me. Don't just come to me when you need a favor. I'm not going to be very responsive if I don't hear from you for 5 years and then you ask me for a letter of recommendation or other favors. Get to know people by going to their gallery, going to their museum, seeing other shows, showing your interest, talking to them, getting to be acquainted. Have coffee before you even show them your work. Just get to know those people and be friendly with them. And they're going to gradually take a greater interest and become advocates for you. And then when they do see your work in your studio or in another show, they'll be more receptive to think, oh, maybe I'd like to include this work in my next exhibition, or maybe we'd like to collect a work by this artist. So lay the groundwork is the message. Lay the groundwork. Don't just come with a request out of the blue cold.
I would add to that by saying how important it is to go to opening receptions,
Yes.
going to gallery
Yes.
receptions.
Exactly.
That's a good way to network and be part of the community.
Absolutely. Very good opportunity. Yeah.
I'll also add by saying that building relationships is a slow process, and sometimes it takes years and it takes time. And because somebody doesn't mean that they just a curator doesn't mean that they include your work in an exhibition immediately. So it takes time. It takes you building that relationship intentionally.
I would also add that you don't necessarily need to know at this stage whether you want to be an artist or a teacher, or that it's one or the other. When I went to graduate school, I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I was also, had a graduate teaching assistantship, and that was important for me because I learned about teaching, and I learned through my MFA program that I really actually did enjoy teaching, and that I did want to pursue teaching at a higher level. And in order to pursue teaching at a higher level, college level, you have to be a really good artist. So it's both. Oftentimes it's both.
I think I also want to talk about this. So I think in the US, we have people like others who just graduated with first degree, which is BFA, and they are doing really great in the art world. So one thing I want to talk about is that, you don't have to get an MFA to become an artist. I think even now that you're in, like, I'm talking about the people like the women group and also the student in KNUST, is that, and one thing I always tell my student is, being in an art school means that your career, like, you don't need the MFA. So like, start being professional, go to class on time, submit assignments, you meet deadlines, which is submitting assignment on time. Documentation, I'm so excited that Joy talk about that, which is documentation, because for me and all the faculty members here, documentation is really part of, our grading system. So each and every student, after critiquing the work, you need to document your work and upload. It becomes really huge, assessment when it comes to grading. I also want to talk about social media, which is the Instagram that we used to have now. Normally, like before COVID, I used to take pictures of myself and post it on social media. And when I moved here after COVID, I realized that things has now like really changed. So like one thing I also want to talk to you guys is to also make sure that, the works that you make, your work in progress, your finished work, always post on social media, because you might not know who is watching. Sometimes people will reach out to me and I will just ask them like, how do you find me? And they will just tell me, oh, we've been following you for quite now, like 2 years now, but I really enjoy your consistency and everything, the things that you post. And they will reach out to me and you just take it from there. So what I'm trying to say is that, I know you all have social media, be posting your work. You can be in Ghana and be showing your work in the US. You can be in Ghana and get residency in the US or in China. You don't have to get down with a BFA or get an MFA. We didn't know until when we met Jenny Hulin when she came to Ghana. But I think now, because of social media and the internet and the way things have been really changed, I think you should start posting your work. And also, I also want to talk about studio visit. Email us, email whoever like you feel comfortable talking to, you know what I mean? Because I think here in the US, the students do that a lot. They email their mentors, they email the MFA students to do studio visit with them, help them, develop their work. So when, so they don't just get like, information from just an instructor, but also like get to talk to people who are already making it, they schedule for an appointment, they do Zoom meetings and those stuff. So I think these are some of the things that I wanted to add up. The social media, do studio visit, and document your work. And I think documentation should be part of KNUST curriculum, or like the department, the ceramic section, curriculum, because I mean, that will also like put the student in the space to always document their work. And you don't really, need a space. Sometimes maybe your work could be about, the space. You just put a piece in the space and document them. You don't really need like a white background or whatever. So like, I think documentation should also be something that they should really, enforce in the program, especially in the ceramic program.
And with the documentation, mean proper documentation.
Yeah, proper. Yeah, really.
Yeah, not just
on documentation. Yeah.
Just make sure everything is very intentional. I mean, yeah, just make sure it's very intentional. Just make sure it's proper documentation. Like using a quality camera, even if you have an iPhone, just make sure you edit it very well. Because then imagine you're sending them to other people who are going to be able to tell who you are as an individual just by the kind of pictures or images you send. That speaks that speaks a lot about who you are as a person, whether you take things seriously or not. It's also very evident in the way you present yourself. So documentation should always be like very intentional and proper. Like just be intentional about how you approach it as well.
Another important thing to
students, I'm sorry, Rebecca, I just wanted to remind the students that are here, and we have a nice sized group, that if you're uncomfortable saying out loud your question, we have the chat here and you can put your question in there. You have at your disposal here some amazing people doing amazing work, and very likely the kind of work and opportunities that you would like to have. So certainly being able to ask them questions and feeling comfortable about doing that, that's also going to be, I know Eugene can tell you, once we, before we accept somebody into our graduate program, we interview them on the phone. And so we have Zoom, you know, we do this kind of thing. And if you, and one of the most important things that we ask is, do you have any questions?
Mhm.
And I can tell you that, right, Eugene, if you don't have any questions, we don't want you. I'm going to be that blunt. So, and I give this advice as well. Eugene will also agree. Before you go to an interview, is to prepare a few questions to ask. And so we would really like to hear from you all. I know Joy has made a real effort. Oh, we have something in the chat.
Yeah. So how would you choose your themes or inspirations for your works? I'm a first year student, and I'm also finding some difficulties in knowing how to get those inspirations.
Can I give my own 2 cents? I would say that, like, if you're having difficulty with, like, you know, choosing a theme or inspiration for your work, I would say look at other artists that inspire you. If there are artists that you look up to, or like artists that you just find some sort of similarity with, or you feel like their work speaks to you in a way, you want to read more about them, you want to watch their YouTube videos and interviews, you want to see how they talk about their work. And, you know, with that, you're able to understand why you are interested in their work, and you can start building your concepts around, you know, this artist that you like. And also, like, it takes time. So it's not like, it's not a quick process. It takes time for you to read it, because you're discovering yourself. It's a journey. It's not a destination, right? It's a journey. You know? Yeah. It's a journey. It's not a destination. So it takes time to really discover who you are as an artist and discover your own voice. So I would say that just experiment, try out new things, look for the things that inspire you and pay attention to them. And that's how you'll be able to find your voice.
I'll just add a thought while we're waiting for another question about documentation. Another important thing to document when you do place your work in collections, be sure to document that very carefully as well. And sometimes if it's a private collection, the collector may not want their name used. So then you just say private collection, New York City, or private collection, Houston, Texas, or whatever. And you keep track of it as much as you can, because sometimes things change hands. You may lose track of the work, but at least you know initially who, where, and by whom it was acquired. And certainly if it goes into a museum, you want to list that on your resume. That's super important.
So I just want to add a little bit to what has been said as far as like refining or finding your artistic voice. I think as Adams rightly said, it's a journey that has no destination. That's very powerful. And one thing over the years I've seen, and even in my practice, is that one way through it, and it's just my philosophy, one way through which I was able to sort of like break free was to learn the rules and break the rules. And I'm just sort of like connecting this to even the advent of abstractionism. I guess basically they were tired of like realistic painting and what have you. So they were actually learning to break the rule. And as a result of breaking the rule, they found a voice, or they found a movement. So sometimes learn the skill sets, learn how to throw, learn how to build, learn all these technicalities, and start breaking them. And then you can use that to even connect to your personal life and who you are. Then that could be like a foundation through which you start building a conversation. And the good thing about this, the more you keep refining it, the better it becomes. The more you keep having critique, feedback, and what have you, the better your voice or your artistic voice keeps getting refined. So that is one approach that I use. So it might work for you, it might not. So learn the rules and break them.
And I think it should be evident in the way you break them too, right? Because you are probably breaking them in certain aspects. So we can all tell that, oh, this is a thrown piece, but it's been altered, right? It's not that it's, you're breaking the rules in ways that people can see. You can see how it's been changed or like altered in certain ways. I think the lady that asked the question was asking about certain, when you make certain works, they are pleasing to the eye and others are not pleasing to the eye. I think in KNUST, and how like when she make works of that sort, how does she need to defend it or something to the faculty? Like she's not given the chance to actually really be able to talk about the work. Personally, I think references are very important, right? If you have a good reference as to why you're doing what you're doing, and I think it still fits into what Anne said initially about reading about other artists. Why are they doing, why are they making the work they are making? And you trying to find your voice in that. So, I mean, for you being in class right now and trying to make something that you like, you think of it as not being aesthetically pleasing, what are the other references? So what are other artists that are doing something similar? So when you're asked, you're like, oh, I'm trying to think of this work through the lens of, let's say, an Adams, right? An Adams is someone you can just Google and reference. The faculty can definitely reference that artist and see what you're trying to communicate. But if it's out of the thin air and it's not intentional, then I think it becomes a struggle for the faculty to be able to understand, at least from the beginning, right? But if you're able to continue it consistently, I think they'll be able to understand you. So if you're not about making works that are not, are not very formal, and you want to take the informal approach or breaking the rules, the easiest approach is to look at other artists who are doing the same thing, and then where do you find your voice in that? So if you are presenting that for critique to Dr. Norty and he says, I don't get it, you are like, oh, I'm looking at this artist. He can definitely look at that artist and see what you're saying, right? Because that's like the context in which you're working or you're trying to develop yourself. So don't just create the works out of thin air and maybe expect Dr. Norty to be like, what are you doing? When you have references, I think it's easier for everyone to be able to see where you're going, right? And just like Teddy talked about abstraction, I think we can all get a context of abstraction. So it's easier for us to come to, a consensus as to what he's trying to say or trying to do as an artist. So it's very easy. So for the students who are trying to take a different approach to what the department is offering, like just make sure you have good references. And I think that will help you in general or overall.
Joy, there's one more question that we can make this our last question because of the time in the chat, and it's somewhat related to what Michael was talking about.
Sometimes you want to think outside the box or break certain rules, but others do not see the importance in it. Or could the explanation help?
Would that be more like I'm thinking that an artist statement that you would hang with the work or have at a show would help a great deal. I see Rebecca's both Rebecca's nodding.
Well, so I would add to that, use all of your professors, because not all of them, you might be ceramics focused, but your ceramics professor might not get what you're doing. So you might need to talk to the sculpture professor or the painting professor. And so, and then they can sort of help you. But, you have to be able to talk about what you're doing and what your goals are and what you're trying to do. And if they're not getting it, maybe it's them personally, but maybe they have something to add that you need to take in. So maybe there's a little bit of constructive criticism that would be helpful. But I would recommend talking to all of your professors. My painting professor was amazing for me when it came to color. So
that's I think a really good question to round up everything. But Joy, you get the last word if you want to thank all our wonderful people that have really donated a lot of advice and their time.
Okay, well, I would like to thank every panelist that made out time to come here. Your time, your contribution, your efforts is well appreciated. And the CIWI group that has given this platform for young artists to come and learn and better their skill sets. Grateful that this platform is available. And to every students that were able to make it here, thank you for coming out. And we hope that every contribution that every comments that have been made here has impacted you one way or the other. I have dropped my email in the chat room. If you have any further questions or if you'd like to reach out to anyone on this platform, you can send me that email and we can take up a conversation from there. I think at this point,
We'll wind it up. Well, thank you, everyone.
thank you all for coming.
Yeah, and thank you, Joy, for organizing this group. It's
Thank
been
you,
really
Anna.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well done.
Great
Well
to
done,
meet
Joy.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Be
Bye.
good.
Thank you.
Video